All right, welcome everyone. This is going to be my beginner's guide for Omega Strikers. To start off, I highly recommend you play with WASD. This is going to make it so you can move much more easily and be able to aim your abilities while moving. It's very crucial that you select this setting and don't play with the MOBA settings because it's going to be just a much worse experience for you. Don't trust anyone who says to play with MOBA settings. It's a bait. All right, with that said, I'm not going to be going over trainings in this video because they're going to change, and I want this video to be more timeless, I suppose, to be a better introduction to the game. So if you want trainings and whatnot, you can ask in the Discord, or you can ask in the comments, or maybe I'll release a guide for it later on, but it's not going to be in this video, so just a heads up. So, what is Omega Strikers? Omega Strikers is, at its core, a MOBA 3v3 air hockey game. So you have this puck up here that you can see that you hit, and your goal is to get it over here into these goals on either side. The way you win is you have to score at least 2 more goals than your opponent, and then generally it's going to be first to 5, but if you haven't passed that 2-goal mark, then you will keep going until you have 2 more goals than your opponent. So you can actually get up to a 100-100 game theoretically, or you could also just win with 2-0 if the timer runs out. So the first thing we should talk about is hitting. So as you can see here, you have abilities. Your left click right here is going to be your basic auto attack. This actually can't interact with other players. So if I go over here and I start doing this, I can't hit them with this. But if I go walk over and I right click like that, well, that can interact with other players and that'll start knocking them and doing damage. Now, with that said, now that we've talked about hitting people, let's talk about the health bar. So as you can see, when I hit someone like this, you can see their health bar goes down. This is going to be very important because as we start breaking that health bar, we're going to be able to push them out into these zones over here and kill them. So as you see, I broke their health bar, so now they get launched much more easily like that. And if I hit them enough, or hit them into these side goals over here, or these goals over here, they're going to die. And that'll make it so they're on about a 10-second respawn timer, and so we can play the map with an advantage. Quick note, I just wanted to make it clear that you don't have to actually break their health bar in order to knock them out on the sides. You can do it without breaking their health bar. It's just easier if you do so. Now that we've talked about killing people, let's talk about EXP and levels. So levels are very important in this game. Levels are gained through pretty much everything. As you can see, we've gained levels passively by doing nothing. You get levels by killing people. You get levels by picking up these orbs over here, or over here, or over here. You get levels by hitting the ball over and over again. So pretty much everything you do is going to give you levels, and levels will give you stats. They'll make you hit harder. They'll give you CDR on your skills. As you can see, I have percentage CDR over here. It's 5.1 because I believe the base was 6, but I got some from leveling. So levels are very important in this game. A large part of the game is going to be playing to get a higher level than your opponent, so you can have more stat buffs, so you can play with an advantage and beat them with pressure because you're a higher level than them. There are also certain trainings that give you bonuses based off your level. So like Prime Time, for example, you get 2 of your right clicks, this move right here for me, if I hit level 10. Now that we've underlined the basic mechanisms behind the game, let's go ahead and talk about how you should be playing the game in a realistic setting in order to win. So in the next section, I'm going to be dividing it into 2 parts. One is going to be for forwards, and then one is going to be for goalies. Both of these are going to have information that is relevant to playing the other role. It's just easier for me to divide it like this, so I highly recommend you watch both, but it's just easier for me to divide it like this so you can get a better understanding of what the job of each role is. Let's first start by talking about the forward position. So forwards have 2 major jobs. The first is to harass the enemy forwards and or goalie so we can create a numbers advantage by killing them and then trying to score while they're dead. And then the second goal is to, well, score so you can actually win the game. So since scoring is the more important of the two, we'll first start by talking about scoring. To score, the most important concept you're going to have to understand is something we refer to as stuffing. What is stuffing? Well, imagine this. You're rallying the ball back and forth between the enemy goalie, right? You're hitting it, they're hitting it, you're hitting it, they're hitting it. You're not really accomplishing anything here, right? But what if you hit the ball the second the enemy hits the ball, so that way they're on cooldown and can't actually respond to it, and then the puck ends up sliding past them so you can score a goal. This is what we refer to as stuffing. Now, how do you accomplish this? Well, there are 2 ways. One is you can use an ability as soon as the enemy hits it, so that way you can push the ball past them while they're on cooldown and then force a goal that way. And then the other way is to delay your hits and play a sort of a mind game while they're trying to hit it. So if you don't hit the ball and you just walk next to it and you just don't hit it, you're not going to be on cooldown, right? If the enemy hits it as you're doing that, well, then they're going to be on cooldown and you're going to be able to shove it in them regardless of what they're trying to do. Now, this is kind of a mind game thing because you can't really reaction what the enemy is going or when the enemy is going to hit, but it is still a strong concept to understand nonetheless. There are other concepts that are very important for you to understand when trying to score. One of these concepts is called self-passing. So when you bounce the puck off of the wall to go back to yourself rather than just launching it forward, this makes it so the enemy doesn't get to interact with the puck. This is a very important concept to learn and understand because it means you get control of the puck for longer, meaning that the enemy has less time to be able to try and make plays or launch the puck away, and you can also set yourself up to make better plays. Another important concept is passing to your teammates. So, much like soccer, rather than just kicking the ball forward and trying to get into the enemy goal, it is sometimes, or rather a lot of the time, extremely beneficial for you to rather just pass to a teammate and see if they can get a more open position. This makes it so way they can maybe score from a better angle, or maybe they can pass it back to you, or maybe they can use their abilities to try and harass the enemy and whatnot. Maybe they just get more EXP because you just keep hitting it back and forth between you. There's a lot of reasons to do this, and it is very strong. You should try to throw away the concept of just constantly kicking the puck forward, as this isn't going to help you, especially as you get into higher elos. You should think more about trying to pass to your allies, pass to yourself, create openings for yourself by hitting the wall or comboing it with abilities as soon as you think the enemy is going to hit it. So we've talked about scoring and how to score, the basic mechanics behind that. Now let's talk about harassing, which I mentioned earlier. One of the most important things in this game is EXP, and by killing people, you're going to get a lot of EXP, especially if you're behind. Another way to get EXP is by contesting the orbs, and these two kind of go hand in hand. Because the orbs spawn on the edges of the map, it is extremely easy to kill people near them because you can just knock them as they're going for the orb. So contesting orbs is very important. You get EXP and you can look for kills super easily. So make sure you are contesting orbs and make sure you are looking for kills when other people are going for orbs. Another reason to harass is if you can end up killing the enemy goalie, this makes it so way the enemy team probably doesn't have someone who can adequately defend the goal, and now you have a great opportunity to be able to score much more easily. You're fighting at his numbers advantage. Maybe your goalie can play up a little bit, start passing to you more. The enemy has to play super defensive, meaning that the puck is on their side more often, meaning that you can have much more opportunities to score. Looking for KOs is extremely important in this game, and it is extremely important that you make sure to stay away from the edges of the map if possible, especially if others are about to pressure you and you're in danger by, say, maybe a Juliet or an X or an Estelle or something, or a Jakar. So we've talked about the basics of being a forward. Now let's move on to the basics of being a goalie. The first and most important thing to talk about as a goalie is the concept of clearing the ball. So obviously, if the puck is on your side, it is much easier for the enemy to score than if it is on the enemy side. And the same is also true for your team. It's much easier for them to score when the puck is on the enemy side than it is for them to score when the puck is on your side. Because of this, as a goalie, you want to knock it away from your goal as soon as possible. How do you do this? Well, the general concept behind doing this is going to be knocking the ball either up or down, generally into the bunkers depending on the map, so that way it can slide out towards your allies, or you knock it directionally towards your allies, away from where enemies are. Knocking it back and forth between the enemy makes it so way they have more chances to stuff the ball into your goal, so it's a generally bad practice. 90% of the time as a goalie, you don't want to knock the ball forward towards the enemy. This is a mistake I see a lot, especially in low elo. You want to knock it up, or you want to knock it down, or you want to knock it diagonally towards your allies. If there's clear open space, you can knock it towards that clear open space. If the enemy is down and you are on top, you want to knock it upward. Now that we've talked about clearing, let's go ahead and talk about how to prevent stuffing. So if you don't know what stuffing is, I recommend going back to the forward section and going to the section where I talk about stuffing and how important that is. Basically, the enemy forwards are going to be trying to force the ball into your goal as hard as they possibly can with their abilities and whatnot, or in delaying timings. So your goal as a goalie is to stop this. Well, how do you stop this? Well, there's going to be a few ways. The first way is going to be using preemptive abilities, so using the ball before it gets anywhere near your goal, so even if they try to stuff, you have enough cooldowns to where you can actually deal with the stuffing attempt. So the ways you can do this is by using ranged hits such as Dubu's right click, Atlas's right click, Kai's right click, or Kai's R, stuff like that. So hitting the ball from when it's far away so it doesn't actually get near your goal to be pressured is a good way to prevent stuffing. What's another way to prevent stuffing? Well, if they're going to stuff it, why don't you just counter stuff it? If they're trying to hit the ball with multiple abilities, you can do the same to prevent their stuff attempt. So if they hit the ball to you, and then you hit the ball back to them, and then they try to use an ability right after that, well, what if you just use an ability at the same time? Now, all of a sudden, the puck is going to end up on the enemy side. They're not going to be able to retaliate with another ability because there are cooldowns and whatnot. Now the stuff attempt is done. They can't do it anymore. Another way you can prevent stuffing is by clearing the ball, as we mentioned earlier, though there is one caveat to this. If you clear the ball, say upward, and you're defending on the downward side of the goal, Well, as you do that, the enemy is going to be able to potentially predict that and try to stuff the ball by throwing a skill shot, maybe Stell's right click, maybe Kai's R, something like that, to try and stuff the ball into the goal. So you have to be wary of the characters you're against. If you're against something with short range like a Juliet or a Juno or something, well, being able to clear the ball away from the enemy is going to be extremely effective because they can't actually respond to it. I keep mentioning it, but regardless of your position, it's extremely important to remember hit the ball up or hit the ball down. Don't hit the ball at the enemy. Every time you hit the ball at the enemy, you give them EXP, you make it harder for your forwards or your goalie or whatever to do their job. You give them more of an opportunity to score. It's just always or almost always a bad idea to just constantly hit it. Now, I know it's like pretty intuitive for you to just left click the thing, strike it, try to get it away from you, but you need to get in the habit and develop a good habit of trying to hit it meaningfully. Hit the puck meaningfully down or up so it goes away from the enemy relative to their current position, and then you'll be able to ensure that you give the enemy much less attempts to be able to score, and you'll give your team more attempts to be able to score by default, as the ball is no longer going to be on your side. One last thing I wanted to talk about as a goalie is often forwards like to get extremely aggressive and in your face, and they try to kill you. Well, you can always just do the same to them. As it stands, the current goalies actually have pretty decent knockback. Dubu, Atlas, and even Kai can end up knocking the enemy forwards into your own goal if they're playing aggressive. So if someone's pressuring you aggressively, maybe just knock them back with one of your skills instead of using it to protect the ball. Just something I want you guys to keep in mind. Anyway, this has been my beginner tutorial for Omega Strikers. Hopefully this was enlightening for you all and you learned something from the video. If you have, please like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends so they can learn too, and you can help me out. If you want to see gameplay for Omega Strikers, my Twitch is going to be down in the description below. My Discord is going to be down in the description below as well if you want to ask any questions. And until next time, take care.